So, this is Jeff Miller of A Dash of Insight. We're continuing our series of interviews with Bob Deely, creator of Mr. Model. We're going to talk a little bit about each of the recessions that you see in this chart series and how the model reacted in each case. Let's start with 1957.
What we're looking at is the recession over here, all the way on the left-hand side of the chart. And what we wanted to do was introduce two aspects of the chart that we think help make figuring out what it's saying a little easier to understand. The model basically starts to tell us that we are in the vicinity of a cycle peak or trough when it goes through 200 basis points, which is the red line that runs across the chart. Some of you may have already noticed that there are a couple of cases where it didn't do that, and that we will tell you about those in a moment. But for right now, all we want to do is talk about what's going on the left side of the chart. What the model told us, and remember this has a 9-month lead, is that 9 months before you see the line go through the red line, the blue line through the red line, we already knew that that had happened. So the warning aspect of this comes from the advantage that we gain by the observations being plotted, in this case, 9 months ahead. This has raised a couple of eyebrows, Jeff's among them, and the question is, why 9 months? And the answer is, after doing some testing, we found that 9 months seemed to work about the best. Is this an exact science? Obviously not. And the analogy that I've used with Jeff is that this is a way to think about this is navigation in the age of sail. You don't have a motor on your boat. You have a sextant and you have some other navigational tools that will tell you where you are. But the process of getting from point to point can be, shall we say, done by approximations. You get closer and closer to where you are. Whereas now we tend to think in terms of GPS that measure things down to the inch. In a system such as this, we view this in terms of indicators that will tell us when we think business cycle conditions are about to change. And as you'll notice, the path of that line went both down and then up, telling us that the recession was going to start and end more or less when it did, 9 to 12 months ahead of the time that it actually happened.
So we have it crossing the line going downward here 9 months before this date, which is a very timely indicator of the start of the recession. And then something most modelers don't think about is the line going back up across the 200 basis point red line, indicating the end of the recession. Looks like a tad late there, but I mean, this trying to forecast cycle peaks and troughs 9 months ahead is not a very. It's hard to get much closer than this. I'd have to call this a pretty accurate
Well, we
signal.
can talk about that in the next segment because picking the peak and trough date depends on what our friends at the NBER do, and it's an interactive process. We can talk about that next.
All right, I think that is a good analysis for the 1957 recession. Thanks.